A very happy International Yoga Day today to everyone who is celebrating. I'm inspired to share two stories from my life that have absolutely changed the way that I see yoga and I experience yoga in my life. That is, of course, being said that if this word that we're so familiar with, that we call as yoga in the world today, is even something that can be defined or conceptualized. So quite a few years ago, I had this, was hanging out with this friend of mine, and she shared with me that she was going to go to this yoga class. Now, of course, coming from the land which has given birth to this name and this whole thing that we call as yoga, I naturally in my head had some expectations of what kind of yoga class she was going to go to, till she revealed to me that this was a pole dancing diva style yoga class. And that got me a little curious. I'm like, I've not heard of this yoga class at all. And then she explained to me that it was something that she was mesmerized with, and it was about doing certain asanas and certain stretches that you would do around, the pole, the dancing pole, and all of that, and then they would chant Om together, and it was this unique amalgam. That moment, that day, when she was sharing this story with me, while I know that within, clearly I knew that this definitely was not the yoga that we call as the yoga, right? That comes from the land that I'm born in that sense. Something in that moment, all I can really say is that sense prevailed. And the words that could have easily come out to share with her, saying that this is not yoga and this is not anywhere close to yoga, or whatever that could have come out that day, just listening to her and her excitement of how she was connecting with some of the yogic stretches and some of the chants that they were doing in the class, and the whole experience of it, whatever it was that was called as yoga, kind of had me be quiet. I was happy for her that this was something that she was relating with. She has been through a lot of challenges in her life, so happy that she found this. And all I can really say is that sense prevailed, and I was quiet. And a few weeks, I don't recall right now, or a few months later, she invited me to come and be with her at one of they were doing something like a final session. She was like, come visit me, and this and she, I have to say this, she was glowing. She had started this, so I said, of course I'll come. I want to be there with her. And that evening, what happened has changed everything for me, everything. So I entered the class, and they were all performing, and I saw them come in one by one and do these, the breath work, and then these yogasanas, and certain parts of the yoga that they had kind of what they called as yogas, but these stretches that they were doing, which was just like a dance around the pole, the pole dancing. And when my friend came, and even among the others who did it, all I have words for that what I could sense by being there, what I saw was this beauty of her body and her becoming one as she was dancing and holding these certain stretches around the pole she was doing. She was just lost in that world. And what came through as I watched that was that the pure, the strength of the body, even in its limited self, it was stretching. And then there were parts where her chest were stretching and her arms, and she was moving. She was one with this soft mantra music. And in her mind, what she had told me, was that she was chanting that mantra while her body around the pole was stretching and moving intuitively. Like it was like this dance yoga. I mean, I've not, when I saw that, I was like, so beautiful. So beautiful what she showed me that day. And I have no doubt, there was no doubt in my mind that what she was internally experiencing through whatever that she was doing was any less than any of those padas, the parts of the yogic journey that we go through. She was one with that life, one with this. And I came out in gratitude, thanking that I did not utter a word on the first day, that many moons ago, when she shared it with me, that this had anything to do with the yoga, and that I didn't add anything to that. And then of course she moved on even from there, doing that to other forms of what we might call as even traditional yoga. That had me really questioning that so many parts of life that we go around, putting into boxes. This is what it is. This is what it is. Can anything really be defined or conceptualized? Or deeper to look at what defines, what conceptualizes. The word yoga, the same as the word yuga, that's sense, right? The way in my experience is, it's everything is the one thing, that which we are, consciousness, that we cannot name, that we cannot define, yet anything we live and we experience and we speak about it is determined by the nature of the identity, the nature of the mind that is living it. When we say yoga, it is the same as looking at consciousness, how it lives. And this is so unique for each one of us. When we say yoga, it is the same consciousness that is experienced as time and space. Again, not each of us are living the same amalgam of yugas. Such is this unnameable thing, thingless thing, that which we are, that we call as, that we give names to. I often hear this thing about yoga, what yoga is. When, in some ways, when we do not define yoga in a box, it opens up to us in ways that perfectly meet us where we are. That, because yoga is life, it meets us where we are. Yes, we can celebrate it at the level of forms and words, all of that. But to in any way hold it and say this is only what is yoga and it is not outside of it, then we have not understood the core essence of what yoga is in that sense. Another personal story I want to share about yoga is that for me, I'm a Kundalini certified Kundalini yoga teacher. And for me though, for my mind, if somebody had mentioned this few years ago or when I was younger, I'd probably have a hearty laugh. I honestly would. Because the picture of yoga, the way even that, let's say, I grew up and the way that we see it in the modern world today is not something that really called to me in that sense. Or probably that was also because I don't have that kind of a flexible body. So whenever I would see people doing these flexible asanas and all of that, I'd be like, I'm one, I cannot even touch my feet. That's just it. That's just the way my body is made, in the sense that I cannot bend beyond this. So I've had quite a few horror stories growing up in school when there used to be yoga, and one of them I still remember quite a bit. I used to hate going to this yoga class because we had this strict teacher, and the teacher would be like, I still remember, how that teenage age when you're like really conscious and all of that, and we of course had classes where it was mixed. There was boys and girls doing this together, and the teacher, and I still remember the thing that I was scared of the most happened, which was this teacher came up, and then he was like, everybody bend, and we were all bending and I'm trying my best to bend and do this yoga thingy, and then my teacher points out and says, Supriya, I'm asking you to bend. And then I'm like, I am. I really was. He's like, you're not even touching your toes. You need to touch your toes. And I mean, they were my friends. Oh my God, bless their bodies. It was like they could put their hands under their feet. I mean, to me, that's like next level of flexibility. It's like they could put, and it was so easy for them. Whereas for me, it was like just about my finger, could touch my toe just about, and I'd be like, okay, that would be like a great day, kind of. And I share this because, you can imagine for a teenage girl at that point, what we go around is like the worst dream. I still remember coming back home, like bawling, not, he picked on me and stuff like that because he was strict, and he's like, this is like not done, and you're not flexible, you need to work at this, and all of that happened. And then, of course, will I ever imagine being a yoga teacher after that? No way, right? No way. And yet, life happens to us, right? In ways where I also have to say there was another aspect of this that I remember about yoga, that I was always deeply connected to the breath aspect, the meditative and the breath aspect of yoga. Somewhere within me, there was a knowing that at the level of asanas, which is at the level of the body, was just one part of yoga. And that the breath part of yoga, the meditative part of yoga, was something that I did deeply connect with. And that's why I did my pranayam thing, and that was my journey. That was my connect, one may say, to yoga. But it never went anywhere from there, right? Till I started getting signs. And this is how life invites you. You'll hear it from somewhere, because spirituality, what we call a spirituality, what is life, what is life's purpose, why are we here? This has been my life's living in that sense. I mean, like a madness, I would almost say. So this is what I've always explored. So it would always come down to this. It's like, have you become a yoga teacher? Because I could speak or at least that's the reflection that I received. That's things would come out spontaneous from me, and they'd be like, you know what, you should become a teacher. Like, have you ever? So I was never interested in becoming a teacher, because in my head I had this box of what a teacher needs to look like. I mean, come on, that's going to take me years or lives to do that, because you have to arrive at all of those things that you have, the conditioning that you take on from the world. And anyway, so but then I started getting signs, and at that point I was kind of ready. This is a few years ago, so I was kind of ready. I by then could sense that this life that was me invites me into these things. Whenever I start receiving repetitive things, it was very clear. So I started this, and then one day out of the blue, this neighbor friend of mine invited me, and she said, you know what, I have this free class, come with me, and we're going to go do this Kundalini yoga class. And so I said, okay, let's go. I entered the class. It was a 45 minutes class, and at the end of the class, the teacher announced, in that class I was gone. I had this experience, like I was just gone. I just knew things were changing. Just one class, I was just sitting. And at the end of the class, the teacher announced that there was a teacher training beginning. I just knew. That was so clear, right? The timing of it was so right. I went in, I had nothing on me, this thing. I signed up, I told them I'll call and pay them, and the rest is history. So I took the class of yoga, Kundalini yoga teacher. And Kundalini lineage, of course, is very, very connected deeply to the way that I relate to with this yoga aspect, which is all about breath, pranayam, mantra, the sound, that aspect of it. So yoga, that is life, invites us uniquely in every way, and I want to share this because this has been coming up so often, is that one, yoga is life, and it can invite us in any which way. Trust that. Many a times I receive, and I really want to debunk this, I receive the feedback so often from everybody. You come from that lineage, and that's why. Because it's looked upon as if you have the authority. You deserve. You naturally, of course, can do this. I want to debunk this. Because we are right now standing at the leading edge. Change the identity from form, not by denying or rejecting it. Because this body coming from this land, from this lineage, which I share often, is something I am beyond grateful for. But that still is secondary. Primary is consciousness. That which is. When at the level of form we start putting things that is at the level of consciousness, simply an experience of Dwapar Yuga, I want to name that. Simply an experience when we start putting it into these concepts, that is when these issues start. Yoga can be embraced by anyone else. I always share this with somebody. How do you know? How do you know that if you haven't lived, probably this is your, let's say, 1,000th life. How do you know you've not lived 950 lives as an Indian? Like, that is, if you think that is what you need, that makes you more deserving to be of yoga. Why not be open to it? Yoga can come in any form and anything. Yes, right? This is at the primary level. This is the stance we need to hold first. And, see, this is what the Dwapar Yuga doesn't. This is the and. And, yes, at the relative level, the land from which yoga is born. Yoga is like life. It meets us where we are. Isn't that the beauty of that? Because what is the point in anything that is standing so far away from us? Like as if there is this God that is far away from us. This whole almighty big thing that's deserving that yoga that is far away from us, that we bow down to. That makes us feel lesser. What's the point? God, that is one power. Don't want to use the word God, don't use it. Universe, whatever that is that we are, consciousness. One thing that is there. That is the one power that radiates as everything and yet does not push or force itself on us. Such is the power. True power, that's why true power never ever forces itself. Because it is living, it flows, it meets its own self wherever we are. That is the yoga that I want to stand for. That is the yoga. Yoga is consciousness. Whether you call it yoga, you call it anything else, it doesn't matter. And at the relative level, yes, this practice comes from our lands. This practice comes and it is more. The only invitation is that wherever it may meet us, whatever it may do, yoga, whatever we might call yoga, there is more to yoga. And many of the teachers who are pointing to this, because I know teachers like get really this thing riled up with this is not yoga, they're coming from the right space, because what they're pointing to is that yoga is much more. Much more. But the beauty of yoga is it meets us at the identity, at the level where we are at every moment. But it is much more, exactly like consciousness. It cannot be conceptualized, it cannot be defined. It only lives. Yoga is living and all is sacred. Yoga, that's why, is nothing but Shakti. What is sacred for that moment, and it is serving. And from that, it opens up into the other side. So there is no need, really, at least for me, to negate any other form of yoga. If it brings you, even if not, because there's only one divine playing, right? Only one divine playing. This is the beauty of this, right? There's no force. There's nothing to insist upon, really. One divine is playing. But if it is serving you, bringing you to your center, like how it did with my friend, so be it. So be it. That's why this brings me to another one, because this is a common question that comes up. Stand for wherever we are. Because however it is, if you're called to speak for it, even for yoga, stand for the yoga that we are living, right? It's so beautiful to stand for it. When we realize we are energy, we can sense that for ourselves. When we are not, we are at the level of form, we tend to stand against. We're always saying, this is not yoga, this is not it, this is not it, this is not it. What we don't realize is the self is the world. It's all vibration. When we stand against something, and I want to name this, not at the point where it's relevant, right? Sometimes it's very relevant. We are in that moment, we need to share our viewpoint. That's different. But I'm talking of, sense into this. It's like an energetic stance of being against. So we're always against, like we're wronging everything. What we don't realize at the level of energy is that my perception and my experience, my seeing, is not outside of myself. What I am vibrates. When I stand against life as a theme, that is what I'm vibrating. Stand for. stand for. If it is something that has helped you, that you know is at a different level, stand for it. With all your heart, speak for it. Share for your way of yoga. Without needing to deny, because this comes up so often, I suppose this is coming up so often. Without needing to push back on any other, because every other state is beautifully living it. Stand for. This makes the living of this journey joyful. This is the sheer power of living as consciousness. This is what we are being invited into. To live from our true self is to live as consciousness at the level of energy. Nothing is outside of me. From this stance, speak for it. So then you're sharing what needs to be shared, what it means for you. This, I want to name again, is hard for the Dwapar Yuga state of mind. When we are in the Dwapar Yuga state of mind, this or that. That's the state of the mind. So it always, like the person puts the world outside it. That's the fragmentation. So when we are unconscious, standing as one stand means we are against the other. If I'm for this, that means I'm against that. No. Standing as energy is you can be for something without being against something. That's what we are being invited into. Age of Aquarius. The way is through. The way is through. Yoga. As the conceptualizing mind, yoga, Dwapar Yuga, naturally we put yoga into concepts. As we move through and deepen into Age of Aquarius now, summer solstice also today, the invitation is to step out of that thinking, conceptualizing mind that plays in time and see wherever we are, all is I am living yoga. Wishing us all a very happy International Yoga Day, to celebrating all parts of ourselves and our world. Much, much love.